pleasing place, a phrase that's been in my mind, one that would breathe transcendence. And I think that our artists have helped create that kind of space. We've sort of thought of ourselves as repeating the traditional function of the church in a new setting of being a patron of the arts. And we've done so with the idea that the artistic community opens up realms of meaning that often escape us. The artists invite us into a new world, to see the world in a very different way. And in this setting, to see the world in greater depth, to uncover some of what I like to call the mystery dimension of human existence, and to transport us a bit, to challenge us, and to help us to see the world in different perspectives. That was our hope, and we feel that that has been realized in a marvelous way here in this particular setting. I want to just go over the list. See, not all of what we've done is ask the commissioned artists to speak. We also, to let you know, we purchased artwork from the students at the university. We set aside a certain amount of money and then asked them to submit pieces and purchase that. And their names also are here on the sheet, as you see. And Ken Thompson, who will be the last presenter here, will say something about their work. But that was a very important part of what we wanted to do. That is, involve the university community in the whole project and encourage the students to think in terms of religious art. And they produced some marvelous pieces for us. And those pieces are throughout the building. And thanks to Ken Thompson, who has served as the artistic consultant on this whole project. He teaches at the university and has been just tremendously helpful to us. He's produced this little map that you see that enables you. I have found that if you tear the two sheets apart, it works better. And so that one can look at the drawing and see who has done what where. I'm going to just go down the list here. I'm not going to introduce each person. I'm letting them introduce themselves. But I will say some of the people are not here. Judy Diazeghi is here and will be talking, and David Eichenberg will also be here. Rick Findora is not. He sent his regrets. Lynn Hayes is here, and just to alert you that some of the people talking will be talking about works that are not finished yet. Lynn's work, for example, will probably not be done for another year, and so I will let her describe that. But so some of the works on here you won't see, but people will be able to describe them a bit. So going down the list here, Lynn Hayes is here and we're talking. Robert Huff will be here, and I'm sure mentioning the names of the students who helped him. And Mark Humanick is not able to be here. Tom Lingaman is. Dean Ludwig is. Jersey Kanar has come from Chicago to be with us. Robert McGovern will be doing a statue of Cardinal Newman. As people might know, the original artist, David Barton, was stricken with a mysterious illness and was not able to continue, although we told him we'd give him a couple years if he needed it to finish it, but he felt he couldn't do that. So at that point we commissioned Robert McGovern. That statue of Cardinal Newman will be out there in the gathering area, and that will be done in about another year as well. Diane Nitre is here, and her daughter Carrie will be assisting her, I think, in the comments. Ken Thompson, I've mentioned, will actually be the last speaker here. Ken Von Rowan did all of the glass art in the building, which amounts, as you can see, to a great deal. And it's a wonderful setting for this place. It allows us to be in touch with the world there, the campus, and also provides an uplifting feeling. The windows are designed to give a sense of transcendence as they sort of move upward, and you get more vertical lines and fewer lines. And it's sort of the idea of being uplifting, like the Gothic cathedrals. On the glass leading into the font here is a water symbol to link up with the font. So sorry that Ken couldn't be here to describe his own work. Suzanne Young did the stations of the cross and the floor. And those are starting at that door over there and go all the way around the ambulatory here. And then a very sad story was Steve Shields, the last person who did the Mary statue over there. Steve, at the age of 53, and after just about completing the Mary statue, died suddenly of a heart attack. His family sends their regards. We've stayed in touch with them ever since. They're wonderful people, and it's a great sense of loss. And so that Mary statue will always have a special feel for us here. And Paul Sullivan is here tonight also representing the collaborative who did the artistic work. I think did the architecture, the structure. Where's Paul? Yes, and I think Paul will be out in the gathering space as well afterwards to answer any questions. I said I was going to model for everyone else the length of time that we were to talk. Well, forget the model. We're still down to asking people to stay under 5 minutes, and I will be moderating that. And so I want to call on Judy Diazeghi now to come forward and to be our first speaker here.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here, Father, and to Pam and to the staff. I think it's quite grand that they have invited all the artists to come and speak tonight, and for us to have a chance to get to know each other. And although it's my name on there, I do not work alone. Our daughter, Debbie, helps me. She's worked with me for the last 8 years, and another daughter of ours with a 5-month-old son or a 7-month-old son has just joined us as well. So we have a good time as we create. I'm going to read to you something just that's very brief that I wrote some time ago, but I still feel very strongly about it as far as banners in a liturgy space. And it's banners, mobiles, and hangings invite the assembly into liturgy with form and color. They create a hospitable atmosphere that encourages the assembly to participate and to celebrate. Banners can evoke joy, enthusiasm, and anticipation, or they can invite silence, meditation, and contemplation. They challenge our imagination and inspire feelings. These particular ones that you're seeing on both sides invite the assembly into ordinary time, and the many shades of green reflect the many seasons of nature that ordinary time encompasses. The little sliver of blue in there can be ice in the wintertime. It can be the summer, the rivers, the streams. It also acts as a foil. It sets off the color of green and makes the green a little more intense. And that's one of the wonderful things about creating in this space is all the earth tones that have been used, the colors really set off the colors that are brought in. The same design that you're seeing here was used for the celebratory set for dedication, and that was in yellow and white. This particular mobile picks up the design of the window that is directly above me, also the window that is out in the front of the church, the circle. So we just picked up the architectural element that was already in place. The bottom is kind of an artistic interpretation of a vine and branch. In the celebratory set, it was in gold. Here it's in green. And the banners on this side, these small ones, just enhance, complement this particular, the bigger one, and add some color throughout this space so that when you walk in to church, you know it's ordinary time. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm David Eichenberg. I really don't know a whole lot what to say. I did the corpus, which is behind me. It's quite an honor to have it in the church. When I first started doing anything with art, what got me started was when I opened books and saw the great churches in Europe, especially St. Peter's, and to be able to have a piece of my own art within a church is a dream come true. Father Basic, I thank you for considering me. Ken Thompson did a great job. Everybody here has done a great job working along with me. As far as the corpus itself, I kept it to a traditional representation of the crucifixion, all except for I feel this kind of important to say, as how I see the crucifixion with the nails through the wrist. I didn't depict it as through the palms. As probably everybody knows, I guess they found historical evidence that through the palms could not hold the weight. I wanted to be as realistic as possible, to be able to portray maybe what was going on at that moment if you look at it. Once again, it's been a great joy to work with the church and Father Basic. Sure. I did the crucifixion in the meditation garden. That one has a little different approach. It is very expressionistic. If you look at it, it's like a moment frozen in time. It is the last breath, basically. And the angle that it's placed at, I wanted people to be able to walk around it and see it at a different view. And every time I walk into a church, there's nothing wrong with it, but they're usually mounted like the corpus behind me. And I felt visually that you miss out on quite a bit walking around it. And at the angle that it is at, not only can you see the different angles, but it really pulls you into the event. It lets you realize what a sacrifice it was. And I hope everybody enjoys it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lynn Hayes, and I can be brief because I have not made a piece yet. But I would like to say it's quite an honor to be able to work for the church. And I think that they have made a great example by filling this sanctuary with beautiful art. And it is an honor for me, especially to be able to make St. Joseph, because he is a patron saint of carpenters. And as a craftsperson, I struggle each day to be a good craftsman. And so this challenge for me is special. I want to thank you very much. And I hope you like my piece when I make it.
Hi, my name is Robert Huff, and I teach sculpture at the University of Akron. I've been making sculpture for about 20 years. I've done a lot of different kinds of work, but I've never been asked to do a religious symbol before that was as powerful and as universal as the cross. So to begin a project like this, I knew I couldn't be especially clever. I'd have to just be honest and see where it went. So I thought about the crosses that I'd seen and the ones that had had the greatest impact on me. And there was one that really stood out that I saw in London about 10 years ago at the Victoria and Albert Museum. It was a 1,000-year-old Irish cross that had been outdoors being weathered. It was carved stone. It had a broad base that tapered to the top. It had a circle at the crossing that reinforced its strength and had helped it to survive. It had detailed relief carving that had been weathered away so you could barely tell that it was there. And it was such a beautiful blending of a natural material and a carved symbol, a stylized cross. So I adapted that for the work that I was going to propose and presented a model. My model's over here for the cross that's in the front of the church. And I saw this as a three-dimensional model that would describe the form. And it has the similar proportions as the cross that I had seen in London. But its surface was left smooth, and I tried to show only form with that. And the other part of my proposal, the part that wasn't accepted, was a highly detailed surface, similar to the cross that I had seen. It was an interwoven pattern of sheaths of wheat and a grapevine with a holly wreath for the circular portion. And I spent a great deal of time and made a beautiful drawing, and it was rejected. And it's okay. I'm not hurt. As a matter of fact, when I saw the cross, when I saw the church, before I saw the cross, I realized that a very good decision had been made, that the cross that I had proposed was very inappropriate, and that this version instead, that my model that showed just the simplified form, was actually much more appropriate for this church, this location, at this point in time. So I'm very glad that it's worked out like that. This has been one of the most pleasant professional experiences that I've had in the last 20 years. I'd like to thank Ken Thompson, Tom Lingeman, everyone in the parish for the opportunity to do this. It has been handled beautifully, and thank you very much for the opportunity to participate. Three. Jason Arbogast, Miguel Romero, and Chris Stofan. If it weren't for them, that cross wouldn't be here. They made it. They built it. This was a piece that was done at the school, at the university, and it was something that I was delighted to be able to participate in. I was glad that they had the opportunity. As a teacher myself, I could appreciate what the opportunity could be for them, and I was very lucky because they made my idea look good. Thanks.
I'm going to make my remarks brief because I've got a real bad cold, and I'll try not to sniffle into the microphone. Robert, I was going to introduce these myself, and so I would almost like them to stand again, except my act has already been stolen. I don't have an object here tonight. I am in the process of working on a ciborium for the place where the ciborium is held. What's that called, Ken? The tabernacle. But what I am very honored to be here tonight, and I'm honored that I was asked to speak. I think the biggest privilege I have is in being associated with so many artists that have been involved in the project. I think probably my greatest contribution to the art here has been taking Ken Thompson onto our esteemed faculty, the Department of Art. Were it not for Ken, I believe that the University of Toledo would have had less of an involvement than it did, certainly. And I think probably the other contribution I made was not in getting in anybody's way, if possible. So I know that this is embarrassing, Ken, and I'm enjoying it. But Ken, why don't you stand up at this time and take... It is true. Ken is also going to get a chance to speak. So, so I feel that the other thing, certainly another thing is Father Basic's priority for art. I remember at the beginning of this process when the project, I believe, was a model, and the model is still in the design phase. I felt that he embodied I think, the best of the Catholic Church's priorities for art. And so I think Father Basic has a great deal to do with the appreciation that we have for art. And I think it's embodied in this chapel. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. It's really wonderful to have a night like tonight, because hopefully our comments will help all of you appreciate and enter more fully into the liturgical experience and the surroundings. We had hours, days of discussion, design discussion over some of the pieces that I made, literally months over the altar. Father Basic and Father Vasco went on for hours speaking of the symbolism of the altar in particular. So I'd like to share just a bit of that with you. But first, overall, one of the gentlemen that I learned a great deal about woodworking from always said, invite anyone who sees your piece to participate in your piece, to touch it, not just look at it. That, I think, is very important for our church when we talk about an altar or the cradle of the Bible, that we want to be a hands-on church, one in which Jesus is not off in some untouchable place. This fellow said, invite people to touch through the texture that you give your pieces, through the finish. These have an oil and beeswax finish that you just want to rub your hands over. And obviously through the design. It's given me great delight a couple times sitting in the back of the church without anyone knowing I was there, and people would walk in for the first time, and first they'd come to the altar and almost like St. Thomas lean down and put their hand in the side to feel the texturing, and I just sat back there and said, yes, that's exactly what we wanted. And at other times, then they'd wander back to the cross, and only upon getting up to it discover that there's some texturing there as well. That's very much, and then they'd want to feel, and there's some indentations on the grain, as if people have been rubbing that cross where the corpus was for 2,000 years. Just a few words about the design of these pieces. I did the ambo first, and just 2 points that I'd like to make about this. This piece of wood was the very first piece of wood that I selected for this project. It has this kind of circular, almost universal grain to it. I wanted that piece so we are reminded when we look at this cradle of the Word that the Word has a universal appeal and dimension to it. The second element is the sapwood, the light grain that is at the very top of the base. There's a small source of light that comes through at the top of the ambo, and I wanted to frame that light and let it be a reminder of the inspiration of the Holy Spirit in the Word. A few words about the altar. Through our hours of discussion, I learned, I never realized this before, that the altar in a church is supposed to be the symbol of Jesus Christ. So Father Vasco was absolutely adamant that whatever design the altar was had to somehow carry a symbolic dimension. We finally came up with this. The thought behind the altar, its sharp angles and heavy cross piece, is that Jesus cuts into our existence and yet is cut by our world, cut by our existence. There's a lot of dual dimensionality to the altar. the humanity and the divinity of Jesus. So those are a couple thoughts that I hope you carry with you as you celebrate liturgies. One other, just woodworkers get carried away with their love of the grain of wood, but I found this marvelous piece of deep red walnut that had a very tortured grain to it. That, as you look at the altar from your perspective, is on the right-hand side, right underneath the area that is pierced, or right next to the area that's pierced by the heavy cross member. Again, to remind us of that tortured dimension of Jesus' existence. I guess a night like tonight is a night where artists can feel kind of full of themselves. And I wanted, if you'll give me just another minute, I wanted to share with you the thoughts of the man that I would consider my mentor in woodworking. He's now 83 years old. His name is Sam Maloof. He's a very well-known artist at this point, but has just a beautiful spirit about him and an attitude toward his work that I think all of the artists here might enjoy on a night like tonight, recognizing where it all comes from. These words are from Sam Maloof. Most people who work with their hands have a communion between themselves and their materials. The reverence that the object maker has for the materials, for the shape, and for the miracle of his skill transcends to God, the master craftsman, the creator of all things, who uses us, our hands, as his tools to make these beautiful objects. It's too easy for we who make objects to become quite taken with what we have done, to accept all the credit and all the praise. Yet no man has ever designed anything that approaches the complexity of the simplest flower or the grandeur of a great redwood tree. Let us always remember that it is the great Creator who works through our otherwise powerless hands. God is the creator of all things, and the beauty he has given us is awesome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jerzy Kenal, sculptor coming from Chicago. And the story with me here was slightly different than other people. I jumped in this project pretty late. I know very well Ken Van Roen, this stained glass man, and he called me and asked why you are not involved in this project. I said, I practically don't know. And because they can't decide, about sculptors, so send some pictures there. I did, and then I called Father Basic, and it was the hardest point in this project for me to get trust of Father Basic and his people. So really, I done first head of Mother Teresa, then the whole body. It's like with the details, and then I was accepted, and I'm very proud. And I love this space because it's every artist who did something here is small part, but all together create very sophisticated place, really. And just the choice of the signs was beautiful. It's for the future. It's like this is the student place mostly. And when I get letter from Father Basic describing, because I couldn't catch the rhythm, I didn't know how the buildings looks and how to jump in this rhythm here. Father just described me that he want witnesses of the baptismal, and so then I catch it, that it's supposed to be very delicate. Bas relief will be the best way to show it, and And the small niches you see, it's like cooperating with the can, with design these things. And I think the power of this place is that it's like the food is on the table and you get the choice. You can choose the food you love, because every of us is individual. When you contemplate, when you pray, so you are doing your own way. And here, nobody's feeding you. You get your space, and I think this space will be powerful forever. So I am very proud that I can participate in this project, and thank you, Father, for the opportunity. Thank you.
We also have two pieces that you can't see because they're still in process. I was asked last year by Father Basic to capture in a memorial form a friend of his who had died a number of years ago, Professor Chuck de Benedetti. And it was a challenge because I didn't know this man. I had never seen him before. I had heard his name, but I didn't know him. So Father Basic gave me his daughter's name, and I called her, and we met, talked for a while, and this man began to take form for me. She handed me 4 scrapbooks and said, peruse through these scrapbooks. Well, I was hoping to find 10 by 14 or 8 by 10 pictures of this man's face. There were little tiny photographs of a group of 20 people, and his face was this big. So I thought, oh, this is going to be a real challenge. So it took a lot of thinking first. How do you capture somebody, A, that you don't know, B, whose face is not screaming out at you from a piece of glossy paper? What I decided to do with him, I've done several times before, and the first thing was to get out of my own way, meaning not to go through the photographs thinking, oh, I could sketch that one easily because, you know, the lines are better, but to try to let whoever Chuck was and who I was beginning to see speak through me. So it was kind of like making myself a channel and praying and saying, Chuck, whatever you need to say posthumously, help me see it. So then I went back through the scrapbooks, and luckily I have a daughter who's very insightful, who had been doing artwork in Columbus, and we have begun working together. So she also did the same thing. She not knowing what I liked, I not knowing what she liked. And we both went through the pictures and went through the words written about Chuck to see what stood out. And what we created together is basically what we each seem to get a message about in terms of this wonderful man and his beautiful spirit. I'll talk about the second one, but I wanted Carrie to add basically whatever you wanted to.
I was just really moved by how gentle his face was. He was a very gentle person. When you see the memorial, you'll be able to see that from his face. And he's most definitely a person that would have never expected or wanted a memorial of himself. Most of the pictures of him were of him standing behind somebody, you know, or with somebody with his hand on somebody's shoulder. But he had maybe one picture of himself just alone. He was not a person that asked for recognition, you know. He was definitely a person that stood behind people, you know. Probably even maybe a private person. But I found him to be very very moving, to get to know him just through photographs. So, anyways, that's what I have to say.
The next memorial piece that we have really just begun, we've been working on it in our heads for a while, is that of David Lovell. David Lovell was basically an industrialist. He was also a man I didn't know at all, and got acquainted with him through photographs and through discussions with his wife. Same thing. Had to get out of my own way and see what David Lovell wanted to say about himself posthumously. And this was a man of joy, of incredible joy, and I think in his memorial, that's what comes out. I've never seen a man with such a beautiful smile. I mean, he exuded joy. So that piece is really exciting to get going on. But I want to thank you very much for attending and giving us the chance to explain what we love to do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ken Thompson. I am the last in the line. Are we ahead of time or behind time? Oh, rats. Maybe we might be behind time. We could do the dine and dash. I want to tell you a little bit about several aspects of this job. It wasn't until a few minutes ago it dawned on me what I could talk about tonight. I'd been thinking for a couple weeks now, what can I say? You got 5 minutes, make them all count. But when Tom Lingeman was standing up here, it hit me. Tom once made a very profound statement to me. We were in one of those discussions that artists sometimes have about what is art. Okay, it's a big, heady question that can go on forever and ever, and there's not really an answer. However, Tom has taken that and broken it down to something that I can relate to. He says that art is the profound realization of a profound idea, which in itself can be extruded, but when you stop and think about it, it's like, wow, if it's a really good idea, it will come out in my art. Well, hold on to that thought. Originally, I became involved in this project quite simply through answering a questionnaire I found in my mailbox. I teach part-time for the university, and we have assigned mailboxes, and once a week, maybe, I go and empty that mailbox, and I found this in there, and I thought, wow, this is really neat. I'm going to fill this out, and we'll see what happens. And what has happened for me was absolutely glorious. Okay, I've been given to do an opportunity to do things that I've only thought about doing up until this point. Originally, I was brought into this project and interviewed and went through a series of discussions and that to do the tabernacle and the baptismal font. And initially, it appeared to be a job, but it went far beyond that for me. It's not a job. It's become an experience. I've also been involved in some other projects here that have enabled other art to be made, for art to be purchased. I was really excited when the idea took hold to buy student art. Okay, it was a great opportunity to bring the students from the art school over to here, and we'll talk about them in a second. It was also a great opportunity to get involved in helping put forth a competition to select the cross that stands out front, which Robert Huff, who spoke earlier, designed that cross. And once again, it was another great opportunity to involve our students into working with Robert to do that. But back to the profound idea. Initially, what I was struck with most was the architecture of this building. This is something I hadn't seen in a long time. It had a lot of great historical references to the architecture. The collaborative did a spectacular job in this building. It just impressed me from the first time I saw it. It grabbed me and held me. Paul Sullivan, great. But what really impressed me is, if you haven't had a chance to see it yet, is the Eucharistic Chapel, which is to my left. It's a curved hallway that takes you around to it. And when I looked at that on the blueprints, and then they're talking about doing a tabernacle to go in that room, and I started measuring out those prints. Mind you, I didn't have a model or anything to look at, and I realized this room is a shaft. It's got these great proportions. It's almost twice as high as it is wide. And I thought, wow. For me, my perfect format is something in anything vertical. It had to be tall. It had to be totemic. And when I threw out the word totemic, it took hold just like this. And I started thinking about, wow, something that big in a room like that, and the mass, and the volume, and then what Noguchi has always said hit me about what defines sculpture is the negative space that surrounds it. And I'm thinking, wow, what a great negative space, this room to put a tabernacle in. And it was kind of interesting how we arrived at the tabernacle that we have. It was done through a series of maquettes and this fabulous dialogue that Dean alluded to earlier. I'd do a maquette, I'd take it into the building committee, they'd look at it, we'd discuss it. It's this, but it's not that, Ken. It's you know, okay, fine, I'll do another maquette. Bring that back, and it's some of this, and it's some of that. And can we put those two together? Okay, yeah, great. And what I liked about it is that even though I'm being given credit for this piece, it was really designed by a lot more than just me. I mean, I was putting forth ideas and I was getting a response, and I was taking the response and I was putting it back into my ideas, and it was just this process that built and built and built and built and built. And I think I can say that that is the profound realization of a profound idea. The other piece I did was the tabernacle, baptismal font, thank you. He's going to keep me honest. It's the baptismal font. And the baptismal font was also done in much the same way. It bears similarities to the first maquette. It even bears similarities to the maquette that they accepted. But things being what they are, artists always reserve the right to change their mind. It looks a lot like it, actually. But I did take opportunity to change a couple things, but in essence, it's there. In essence, it talks about what I want to talk about. It talks about water. Water is the prime feature within that font, and what I like about it is that the water is flowing slowly, but it's cutting those grooves into that font each and every day. We can't measure it, but it's measuring time. It's talking about life. And that water, whether it runs at the little trickle it runs now, or if it runs at a greater speed where it really moves the water through, it does to me. It talks about life. There's symbolism that's held within that, and some of it's on the surface, some of it's, you know, kind of like the head of cabbage that you keep peeling away the leaves to get to the heart of. But most of all, as long as I have the opportunity to be last, I would like to thank Father Basic for such a fabulous opportunity. It's meant a lot to me to be involved in this. I'd like to thank Paul Sullivan and Bob Fessler. It's been just an incredible experience. I'm sorry to see it come to an end. Richard Vasco, who has a great way of being succinct. And the man can speak volumes in just a few words. I'd like to thank Pam, because I quickly understood that everything gets accomplished around here because of Pam. And I'd like to thank the parish as a whole for the opportunity. But before I finish this, I'd like to recognize the students that participated and the parish purchased work from, which sketch map. You'll find their pieces located on here. They're throughout the offices and the hallways and such. If you're here and I read your name, why don't you stand up? We have Lee Loesch, who contributed 2 drawings. We have Lee Catran. We have Mike Underwood. I'm going to get down this list of somebody. David Eichenberg. David spoke earlier. David, in addition to the processional cross behind me and the cross in the garden, David also did the monk that sits in the reception area. We have Nathan Haleen and Ken Hoynacke. Ken, I know you're here. I saw you earlier. And we have Judy Catani. We also have Tim Smith, and I know Tim's here. And I might be overstepping my bounds, but this has been discussed. I think that the church and their involvement in art and their annual purchase of a piece or two of student art is going to continue into the future. And to keep that bond and to grow their collection. I found it was kind of interesting when I was compiling this list of the locations and the pieces that were here. I don't remember who it was when I turned this in. They said, wow, we've got that much? Well, the list is going to grow. We're shooting for 3 pages. And I think it's just spectacular, though, that the church has taken this sort of involvement in the art and the connection to the city.
I do want to say a word of thanks to Ken, especially. He's been our consultant all the way through and put in untold hours on all of this. And he well described the process that we went through with many of the artists, long dialogues and discussions and so on. I want to pick up on something he said about Father Richard Vasco. Father Richard Vasco is a liturgical consultant. He did the St. James Cathedral in Seattle that's gotten rave reviews, and Cardinal Mahoney of Los Angeles has hired him to be his consultant on a new cathedral in Los Angeles that they're building, multi-million-dollar cathedral. He really has an international reputation. It's just fortunate that he came to work with us. I still remember our building committee, we interviewed 4 different people. Well, we interviewed 8 different people for the job all over to be the consultant, and it took the committee 8 hours of deliberation to decide on Father Richard Vasco. I went in. He was my favorite. I often lost the votes in all of this, but I went into that meeting hoping that Father Vasco would be the one, and convinced that he wasn't going to be. I even called the man who I thought was going to be and set up a meeting with him to come. That's how sure I was of the vote. Another liturgical consultant from Chicago. And somehow we got in that meeting, and some strange things happened, and the vote was not unanimous, seldom was in our committee, but it was in favor of Father Vasco. And that, to me, was one of the great days in the history of this whole project. He is a genius in my mind, and he's marvelous. And Father Cardinal Mahoney told me that he said he started calling around the country asking who he should get as consultant, and every call he made, they said Father Vasco was the one, so he took him without interviewing anybody else. He is partly responsible with the collaborative with what I think is going to be recognized nationally as a significant contribution to Catholic architecture, and that is this ambulatory around here. If people know what's happening in Catholic architecture, we moved from a very Baroque period. We had all these statues, and any of our churches, traditional ethnic churches in Toledo, will speak to that. Well, we got to the Second Vatican Council, and they said, well, you're not supposed to have all that. You're supposed to have an altar that's the center, and an ambo, that's what this is, or a pulpit. That's supposed to be the focal point in the worship area. Well, many Catholic architects and designers went to what I call a minimalism, Catholic minimalism, so that you walked into Catholic churches and they appeared very much like very spare Protestant churches. And what happened is Catholic people often were turned off by that. Well, what we have here is an essential solution to that problem given to us by the collaborative and by Father Vasco. That is that within the pillars, surely the altar, which is always set here in the center, that's one of Father Vasco's passions, the altar to be in the center. That's where it always is for masses. And this is then back there. Within here, we did what the Second Vatican Council said, and the document said the altar is central and so on. But what the ambulatory does is allow us to keep the Catholic symbols and keep them close, to have the statue of Mary, and Lynn will make a statue of Joseph over there. Mary is Jesus taking his first steps over there, and Joseph will be over there watching Jesus take his first steps. And a lot can be done with ambulatory. The Stations of the Cross, traditional things in Catholic churches, are in the floor, going around there. So the brilliant solution, which I believe will get picked up nationally and will become part of the history of Catholic architecture in the United States, is there's a way to combine the two, to move away from the Baroque and move away from the Catholic minimalism of the recent past and incorporate rich artworks. You can do anything in that ambulatory. You can add statues, you have a mosaic, you can do anything in that space so that one feels like one is surrounded by the communion of saints as one celebrates the liturgy. And that, I believe, will go down historically as a contribution of the collaborative and Father Vasco in this whole process. The plan, I just feel like asking all the commissioned artists to stand once more, please, and for us to express our gratitude to them. Would you stand up, please? Together you have wrought a beautiful setting for us and an aesthetically pleasing place. There's refreshments, desserts, coffee, and the chance to look around, and the commissioned artists have all told me, and the student artists as well, have told me that they will stay there in the area. Paul Sullivan of a collaborative will be there as well, out in the gathering area, so people get a chance to talk to them personally. So let's enjoy the rest of the evening together. Thank you.
We'll have to clean it tomorrow. said at the first mass and how he liked to hold on to it.
Yes, and everybody that comes up here, they all do the thing, like their hands are going like this. Where's the light? I don't get it. But didn't you say something about light coming up?
Talking about coming through the front.
Beeswax finish. So he said some kind of oil and then beeswax on top.
A lot of different colors there.
Yeah, look at, see that? Yeah, there's that red. Red.
Won't be March? No, it's covered up.
Lovely.
Look at the grain in there.
Man, I'd like to read from this.
Yeah.
Oh, he said Saturday or Sunday. They were talking about these labyrinths.
They've gotten very big.
And then Sunday, Saturday,
Yeah.
I forget. And then Sunday, I'm watching in the Canadian channels some spirituality. They show people in Vancouver at some shop. I think it was. They have the same labyrinth. The thing is, they showed the people walking. And I mean, it must have been about 6 or 8 times the size of this one. It was a way of meditation.
You know, we were just in San Francisco. There's a big cathedral, not Catholic, Episcopal, I think it's called Grace Cathedral. And I met somebody that had been given money for something there, and they have a labyrinth. It's outside, the same one from Charlotte. And they're going to do a trip to Charlotte because so many people want to go. Pretty nice.
Hi, Jonna. Hi. Good. How are you? Good. Good to see you. Were you here for the whole part of it? Okay, good.
I didn't know that. No, I didn't. I didn't know you could form a club.
Your mic is on.
Good evening. No. How are you, Marjorie? Huh?
How are you? I miss you.
Nice to see you.
I miss you.
I miss you too.
Yeah.
I sit over there and wonder where the heck you are, you know?
Are you still watering your lawn?
Huh?
Are you still watering your lawn?
No, I haven't. I
missed that.
stopped.
I only hear the river now.
You know,
Not your home.
you don't hear that sprinkler going? Huh? Hope you didn't mind.
Voices from my childhood. Whose book is this?
This is from this guy, Jerzy Kellner, who...
Oh, okay.
Look, hey, Pam.
Wow.
This is at
I should go to Lois.
It's all right, I won't say anything. You like the touching? Huh? Huh? You're supposed to touch. This is the art.